The tropics are very active on this October 19th. Good evening, I'm Mike Naso here with this 11 p.m. Thursday night update on the tropics. We have action tonight in both the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific. In the Atlantic, we have Tropical Storm Tammy, which is trying to organize itself here, and it's getting closer and closer to the islands, and it's almost certainly now going to impact areas of the Leeward Islands and potentially the U.S. Virgin Islands, maybe even as a hurricane. We'll talk about Tammy. And in the Eastern Pacific, we have Hurricane Norma, had been up to a Category 4, has been weakening down to a 3. It could have hurricane impacts very near areas of the Baja of California. We're going to talk about that. We are also going to be watching the Southwest Caribbean for some potential activity, and this area here in the Eastern Pacific, this could cause problems off the Mexican coast in a few days. But we're going to start with Tammy. Now, this is the latest on Tropical Storm Tammy as of 11 p.m. Atlantic time from the National Hurricane Center. Tammy was at 13.8 north, 57.1 west, winds of 60, and the pressure is 1,001 millibars. It's moving west-northwest at 10. Now, yesterday it was racing at 17, 18 miles per hour. So Tammy has definitely slowed down its forward progress. We do have watches and warnings in effect because this system is expected to be a hurricane as it pulls across some of the Caribbean islands. Here are the latest hurricane watches in effect. We have a hurricane watch for Guadeloupe, Antigua, Barbuda, Montserrat, St. Kitts, Nevis, Anguilla, St. Martin, and St. Barthélemy, all under a hurricane watch here. We also have a tropical storm warning in effect for Dominica, Guadeloupe, Antigua, Barbuda, Montserrat, St. Kitts, Nevis, Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Barthélemy, and a tropical storm watch for Barbados, Martinique, Saba, St. Eustatius. All of these areas should batten down the hatches because this tropical storm area of winds is going to impact the islands. We were thinking, could Tammy turn and move out? It's almost certainly now. Even if it started a turn right now, it would bring tropical storm conditions at the very least to the islands. Now, when we take a look at the latest satellite imagery, you have these three balls of convection, one here, one here, one here, and that's usually a sign of reorganization. It looks like the recon aircraft has been flying out there. They've recorded that the winds are still 60 miles per hour, but there is some indication that Tammy is trying to consolidate there with some deep convection over the center. And what we normally see in these situations would be some quiet lack of development, curtailed development, followed by strengthening. And so Tammy is expected to gradually strengthen and then strengthen a little more quickly into a Category 1 hurricane as it moves over some of the islands. I'll tell you which ones are at greatest risk for a direct impact. The wind shear, much more favorable than it could be over the top of it. It could be worse. Right now it looks like it's got a little bit of wind shear here coming over the top of it on the northern side, but that's only helping to fire the convection as it brings this little safe harbor with it along with these warm waters. Tammy will have a good environment for strengthening. As far as the motion, this is the GFS ensembles. Most of them bring it out. Some want to loop it back west. We've seen this yesterday with the GFS, so if you're in Bermuda or even the East Coast, keep an eye on Tammy, just because, we don't like that. The Europeans know better. Look at this. The European brings Tammy on up. Oh, it's going to move out to sea, not so fast. Some bring it right back towards the Bahamas and Florida. That's a scary track. Now, the likelihood of that happening is very slim, but it is a possibility. We had Hurricane Nicole hit the east coast of Florida in November of last year, 2022. So again, some of these models show it getting hung up, and then by the time it moves, high pressure builds back in right here, and it turns to the west. Now, what exactly is steering Tammy? Well, we have this trough moving off the eastern seaboard, and that's going to break down the ridging to the north of Tropical Storm Tammy, and that usually would allow a system to slide right around. However, we have this upper-level feature over Puerto Rico. It's late in the year, so you get a lot of troughiness and a lot of convection, and all of that is slowing Tammy's progress. So while we still expect that track like that out to sea, hopefully without that weird turn back towards Florida, while we still expect Tammy to do that, it's going to do it much slower, and that will not only cause it to cause tropical storm and hurricane conditions in the islands, but the potential for heavy rainfall. Now, here's the radar out of Barbados. Now, see my geography here. This is Barbados. This is St. Lucia. This is Martinique. then Dominica, then Guadalupe. So we have Guadalupe here, the one shaped like a butterfly. Dominica, destroyed by Hurricane David, 1979, Category 5. And Hurricane Maria, 2017, Category 5. We have Martinique here, and then we have St. Lucia, and then we have Barbados down here. Right now, the center is definitely trying to organize a little bit more there. It's curling up. I think it's going to end up moving probably... Let me bring that back. I didn't want to delete that. Oh, never had to use that button before. Okay. I brought my letters back. I'm so happy. Here's the center organizing. We think that it'll move somewhere in this direction, towards Martinique, Dominica, and Guadalupe. Now, that does not mean we won't have rainfall and impacts even as far south as Barbados and St. Lucia, but the heaviest impacts will probably be here on the northern side, wherever that eye of the storm or the hurricane ends up going at that point. Now, where would we expect a direct landfall? Well, right now, the forecast track brings it somewhere near Guadalupe, Montserrat, Antigua, maybe St. Kitts and Nevis. That's why we have those hurricane watches, because by the time the system becomes a hurricane, it could be in some of these islands here. So again, this is Barbuda right here. Barbuda, you got hit in 2017 by a Category 5 Hurricane Irma. This is Anguilla. This is Antigua. Antigua and Barbuda, you guys really need to be on alert, because if this system is turning and you're on the right side and it's a hurricane, you could have some problems. Montserrat, you might be close to it. And then areas here of St. Kitts and Nevis might really get in on some of the action. So that'll be a couple of days from now. We have plenty of time to watch it, but giving a word to the wise, if it's going to be a hurricane, start to look over your hurricane plans just in case you want to hunker down, because a hurricane is nothing to mess around with in some of these islands, because you're trapped. There's nowhere to go. You're on an island surrounded by water. Nothing to do. Now, if you're in the British Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, keep an eye on it. Puerto Rico, you guys look pretty far to the west, but right now, really Martinique to Anguilla appear to be the areas here we're most concerned about. Dominica, Guadalupe, Antigua, Barbuda, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis. You guys hunker down. Here's the key messages for Tammy as of 11 p.m. from the National Hurricane Center. Number 1, tropical storm conditions expected in the Lesser Antilles beginning on Friday. We have the warning in effect. Hurricane conditions possible in the Leeward Islands. We have hurricane watches in effect. That's going to be up to warnings probably on Friday. Secondly, heavy rainfall for the Leeward and Northern Windward Islands on Friday. That'll spread across the British and the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So even though, like I said, you guys won't have the direct impact, you're definitely going to get rainfall, and that could cause isolated flash and urban flooding and isolated mudslides in areas of higher terrain especially. Now, elsewhere in the tropics, there's Tammy. We have this little area of disturbed weather in the Southwest Caribbean. This is a low chance for development over the next week or so. We could see something before it spits into Central America. Usually they move across, and that's when they develop in the Pacific. This system here is a high chance for development in the Eastern Pacific, and it should move towards the northwest, so that would be a problem. They've already dealt with Hurricane Lydia, making landfall as a Category 4 Tropical Storm Max, making landfall. Now they got Hurricane Norma. The next name on the Eastern Pacific list is Otis, and we'll see if this system wants to become Otis and head on up. So very busy year in the Eastern Pacific. That is typical for an El Nino year, but we had a lot of systems in the Atlantic too. Look at this trough pulling off the eastern seaboard. It's going to feel like fall and wet November for a lot of the eastern United States. As this pulls on off, that's going to back off the ridge. Tammy's going to slide away off towards the north and hopefully the northeast out to sea, but not before impacting the islands with potential hurricane force impacts. Another hurricane in the Pacific. This is Hurricane Norma. Norma's at 18.2 north, 108.1 west, winds down to 120. It's a very powerful Category 3 major hurricane. It was about 130, but it's been weakening. It's moving north at 7 miles per hour, and we do have hurricane warnings out here for the extreme southern area there of the Baja. It is expected to be a hurricane by Saturday night as it slowly dwindles its way north, and then kind of goes into land. It's going to be weakening and moving very slowly, but there's a heavy rain threat. There's the satellite imagery. The eye has disappeared, but there's a lot of energy with it. It's still bursting. A lot of energy coming right towards areas of Mexico, high swells and high surf. We do have a hurricane warning in effect for the Baja California Peninsula. It is expected to bring hurricane conditions on Saturday as it passes nearer over that area. Secondly, the heavy rains will impact areas of southern portions of California, Baja on late Friday. That will continue all the way through the weekend. If you're down there, that's your weekend, guys. Sorry, it's rained out. Stay in, take a siesta, chill out with the lady, the girlfriend, whatever, drinking margaritas, whatever, salsa, all of that, because you're going to be rained in. This rainfall could cause flash and urban flooding in those areas of higher terrain and possible mudslides. That's always a threat with these systems, especially these slow movers. So not only is it going to disrupt nice weather, it could bring the threat of rainfall with flooding. So we're going to watch this very, very carefully. So in the final analysis, Tammy, this is going to become a hurricane and impact areas of the Leeward Islands and potentially the Virgin Islands. Be on alert. We'll be talking about Tammy the next couple of days. Norma, this is going to impact the Baja, and we are watching another system. This could be Otis, another system down here in the Atlantic. Could this be our next Atlantic storm? Vince? Maybe. We don't know. We'll keep an eye on everything. I'm Mike Naso, and I'll talk to you guys next time with more on Tammy.